Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, I'm gonna continue on with the story now. Aaron did his best to stay away from Sly and to do everything he could to keep her from being mad. But the harder he tried, the worse the beatings got. Aaron knew he couldn't win, especially if not even the police would protect him. So at a very young age, Aaron lost hope in cops. Aaron just knew there was no winning at all. That Sunday, Aaron's grandpa and grandma took Aaron and Shadow to church. These were Punky's parents, and they was really nice. But Aaron and Shadow didn't know them like the cousins did, because Sly isolated everyone from everyone as much as she could. You know, divide and conquer. That was the name of her game. Going to Sunday school for the first time, Aaron gave Aaron a renewed hope he'd been looking for, knowing he wasn't like his parents, and he sure didn't want to be like them either. Aaron knew he was meant to be and made to be different. He's definitely different, no doubt. Where he felt the feelings, he couldn't wash off the evil that loomed around him, no matter how many baths he took, and finally felt safe and refreshed with his grandparents at Sunday school. Aaron fell in love with Sunday school, eager to learn all that he could to keep this feeling of peace that rested on him at church. Aaron thought, I can breathe again. I don't feel suffocated here. So he asked his grandparents if he could stay with them because Aaron's stepbrother lived with them. He was the older brother, Jay. He could stay with them, so Aaron wondered, why can't I? Aaron didn't even want to go home. Not only did he feel unwanted, he also felt under constant threat of attack, of another beating, which he constantly was at any given moment. But going to church and accepting Jesus at a very young age in Sunday school, he didn't know how this would change his life forever, or how he was now spiritually protected, even more so now than he was before and after the Destiny Swap ritual he knew nothing about. And just to show you, I wrote this handwritten. It's all handwritten. I wrote this when I was in a men's group home, straight out of jail. And anyways, we'll continue on, shall we? Aaron tried as he may to stay with his grandparents until Punky was sent by Sly to pick him up. So Aaron decided one day at school, with talking with Jeff, that was his best friend, about what Jeff did for fun. Jeff replied, why don't you play baseball or something? That's when Aaron got hooked up through Jeff to play Little League, and Punky and Sly put Shadow in T-ball, which freed both of them up so they didn't have to be home at a certain time. Although Punky was never home, and Aaron and Shadow, well, leaving them with the Wicked Witch, Little League was fun for Aaron. He was 8 years old now at this time, and in between 5 and 8 moved 3 times and changed school 2 more times, meaning the only time he got to see his friends was when he played baseball. Then he lost touch with Jeff because they moved to Texas, and Aaron never heard from Jeff again. But while they played baseball, they both made MVP and excelled at the sport. Aaron loved when he wasn't home and got to spend time doing fun stuff and not having to deal with Broomhilda. Being they lived out in an old oil-filled ghost town now and starting a different school meant the end of Little League and a lot more isolation. Sly would now hide things and blame Aaron for taking it, or what was called stealing it for drugs. which was not something someone who was between 8 and 10 years old at the time did. Not able to go to church anymore with his grandparents, Aaron started to go to church by himself. He would walk to church. There was a couple of different churches in the town, and he would go and check them out and just take himself to church. He really wanted to tap in. But living in that town, Aaron started fighting. At first, it was to protect his little brother, Shadow, who got picked on by other kids in the new town and new school. Honestly, though, Aaron didn't like to fight, but started having anger problems from all that he'd experienced from birth until the present time in his life. He had no outlet and felt trapped and suffocated like a rat in a cage. That's a good song by Smashing Pumpkins. Aaron thought that the people started to not like him for some reason, partly because he was different and also because Sly was paying the neighborhood kids to bully and beat up Aaron. The more scared and fearful Aaron became, the stronger Sly got. And this is one tactic she used her magic for, so she could become more powerful, robbing Aaron of his strength. This only pushed Aaron even further and harder into finding God, mainly the peace he so desperately wanted to feel again since that last time at Sunday school with his grandparents. For instance, one day, these two kids, Nick and Chris, decided to ask Shadow and Aaron if they wanted a soda. Aaron said, "No, I'm good, but thank you," while Shadow said, "Yeah." Aaron seen Nick and Chris laughing as they went into the store and instantly knew these two was up to no good. Taking longer than normal to get a fountain soda, Nick and Chris finally came out of the store with a big soda and handed it to Shadow. Aaron's stomach turned because for some reason he knew those two did something to the soda. Watching the two boys walk away, Aaron was distracted and not paying attention to Shadow when all of a sudden Shadow said, "I need to go to the bathroom." Aaron grabbed the soda, ripped the lid off, and seen little white specks floating in the soda, just as he had thought. X-lax. Aaron got Shadow home without incident, then tracked down Nick and Chris, which turned out to be the end of Aaron's skateboard and the end of Nick and Chris being bullies to Shadow and Aaron. Later finding out Chris, the younger of the two, after going into YA, ended up dying by suicide. He hung himself. No matter how much Aaron went to church, though, due to his home life, couldn't find any release from the beatings, bullying, and evil Punky and Sly was putting him through, but didn't realize it at the time. So one day before going to ride his CR80, Aaron went into the garage to get a gas can to top off the tank to get away for a while. Walking into the garage, seen smoke coming out of a pipe on the bench. Aaron looked around. The coast is clear, and took his first puff of weed at 10 years old, barely being able to put the pipe back where he'd found it in time because he was coughing so hard it made him shake. After Aaron caught his breath again and not getting caught, grabbed the gas can, and Punky walked in the garage, clueless to what just happened. Aaron jumped on his dirt bike after filling it with two-stroke gas and headed out of town into the hills for solitude and peace by himself. At 10 years old, Aaron's mind was unlike anyone else's he knew, and the marijuana intensified it and relaxed him all at the same time. This time, though, he rode his motorcycle and started talking to God like he was talking to a friend, or a kid would talk to their father. Well, one that actually cared anyways. Aaron seen God in a different way that day, and that started a relationship that would last for all eternity without him even knowing it at the time. Now, by the age of 12, Aaron overcame the fact that embracing who he was the only option. And this is the incident that caused it to happen. See, Sly pulled off another one of her sly, underhanded tricks again. Seemed as she'd get away with everything. While Punky and Sly got another house in the same town, this one was bigger though and needed a lot of work. Sly set Punky up for failure and threw the whole family into chaos. Aaron, Shadow, and the boys went for an all-day ride, returning after sundown. It was a long day, and they was all hungry. Shadow said to Aaron, "Hey, let's go see what's for dinner." Now, Sly always hated, for the boys to say, "Hey, what's for dinner?" That was a pet peeve of hers. So Aaron, Shadow, Rye, Mickey, and Jay, Billy, Eric rode up to the house where Punky and Sly was. Jay went in the house. He was the older brother, and asked about dinner. Sly said, "Call Pizza Factory." So the boys all jumped in Punky's truck, and Mickey went home. After ordering from the pizza joint, a Toyota pickup pulls up, and a guy who looked more like a cop than a pizza delivery driver got out and asked Aaron where 37 D Street was. Aaron replied, "Well, it would be across the street, but there is no house there. It is a vacant lot." Aaron also thought to himself, that was way too fast to make it from town out to the country, especially being that they just called and just ordered. There was just no way. This made Aaron think something wasn't right, when all of a sudden the passenger in the front seat of the Toyota got out and went around to the back of the truck he just got out of and opened the camper shell and tailgate. 5 sheriff's deputies, 3 jumping out of the Toyota armed with shotguns and handguns. Aaron's eyes went wide as he seen it all unfold, since he was sitting on the back wheel well in the bed of the truck. The officers swarmed the truck, pointing guns inside the cab at Jay, Shadow, and Rye, while the other 3 officers took aim at Eric, Bill, and Aaron in the bed of the truck, repeating, "Freeze, you little," well, some nicknames Aaron's mom gave him at a very young age, which was Mofo. You can fill in the blanks. Shadow's nickname was SOB. So Aaron knew the cops was talking to him, when in reality it was directed at all the boys in the truck, in the front and the back. The other 2 officers then asked the one with the shotgun to Aaron's head, "You got this?" "Yeah, go ahead," he yelled, much louder than he should have. So the 2 officers charged the house, with a 3rd officer en route, leaving 2 officers at the truck where all the kids was in freeze mode with guns to their heads. As the 3rd officer made it to the porch, however, the other 2 officers kicked in the door, guns drawn, screaming, "Sheriff's Department, come out with your hands up." Then Tanner, who was just a puppy at the time, was in the house and started barking as he ran out the front door, and the 3rd officer kicked the puppy off the porch into the front yard. This instantly pissed Aaron off and abruptly took him out of freeze mode. "Don't kick my dog," making the officer with the shotgun pointed at Aaron's head still say, "STFU. You little mofo." How did this officer know my nickname, Aaron thought. Tired of the officer's language and a gun pointed at his head, Aaron simultaneously jumped up, pushed the barrel of the shotgun away from his head, jumped over the tailgate, exiting the froze position on the wheel well, and hit the ground running, leaving only 1 officer at the truck, now covering the other 5 boys. "Stop or I'll shoot," is all Aaron heard as he ran faster than his short legs should be able to move or even carry him. Aaron didn't stop either until he reached the other house where Punky and Sly was. Aaron flew like a ghost through the night, as white as one too, when he finally landed at the other house. As Aaron ran in the house, Punky knew something was up as soon as he seen Aaron's ghostly white, pale face. Sly didn't even look fazed, as if she'd already knew what was going on, just like she had set the whole thing up. But in fact, she did. As Aaron tried catching his breath and talking at the same time, breathlessly said, "Cops! Cops are at the house. They kicked in the door and kicked Tanner off the porch. So I ran up here to tell you." Punky's eyes went wide. Took Aaron's mountain bike. The kid across the street had left him before he moved out of state overnight, it seemed. Aaron thought the kid across the street moved because of a fight that had happened, resulting in Aaron getting jumped by 5 guys at the basketball court, and where Aaron was knocked out by getting hit in the forehead with a pipe right over his eye at the eyebrow, splitting it and still leaving a scar to this day. Aaron told the kid named Will, "When I heal up, you had it." And the next morning, Will's bike was on Aaron's front porch. And the house across the street where Will and his mom lived was empty. Anyways, after Punky took off on the mountain bike, Sly yelled, "Get in the car, mofo, let's go." Check this out. She thought Aaron was lying. Punky on a mountain bike and Sly and Aaron in the car arrived at the house about the same time as Aaron seen the cops that had the shotgun to his head throw Punky down in the driveway off the mountain bike as he bounced up off the gravel, yelling something Aaron couldn't hear because the car windows was closed. Sly opened the door, but not before she barked, "Stay here and don't effing move." Then she got out, strode up to the officer that was pointing his gun inside the cab when more cops came out of nowhere in squad cars. The whole neighborhood was now lit up in red and blue flashing lights. Anyways, Sly approached the officer with only the confidence a witch possessed, and before Aaron knew it, wondering what was happening, the officer and Sly both started laughing. She was actually flirting with the cop. What Aaron rubbed his eyes and shook his head like he couldn't believe they was laughing at this. Was this really happening? The cops at the house kicked the door in, kicked the puppy with us boys, had guns to our heads. Punky was in handcuffs, and those two was laughing. Aaron knew then something wasn't right. All he could do was sit in the car in disbelief and watch it all unfold right in front of him, and there was nothing he could do. If Aaron got out of the car and didn't, because he listened to the witch's command, he knew he'd get a beating he wouldn't forget and regret later for not listening to the witch. Rye, Jay, Shadow, Bill, Eric all got out of the truck, being escorted by the officers into the house in a single file line like inmates in the county jail. Sly was still talking to the cops and still making jokes, apparently, because as another sheriff walked over, he started to laugh as well. Eventually, after the cops didn't even touch the boxes packed in the house, just went right to where the drugs that Sly and the guy she was cheating on Punky with, that dropped off a couple of bags, which just so happened to be stored in Punky and Sly's closet and not the garage. Also going into the dresser and taking several $1,000s in a Ziploc bag. Anyway, several $1,000s of money as well. Aaron didn't know any of this until later, being as he was trapped in the car and wanted to move to open the window so he could get breath a little easier and so he could breathe. Although fearing the witch more than the cops because what had happened to him before when the cops didn't protect him, now that the adrenaline had ran its course and there was nothing he could do anyways, Aaron fell asleep in the back seat of the car. Punky was arrested and sent to what was called the farm for a year or two. Shortly after Aaron turned 13 and started high school, he came home to see Punky through the window in his room. Shortly after that, there was a big move to another town in a modular home housing tract. Guess it was all to leave the bad memories behind, or because of Sly. Aaron thought how all Punky's stuff came up missing and how Aaron and his brother Shadow's motorcycle got sold off. All the bad memories in that haunted unfinished house the family lived in. Christmas was more of a Bart Simpson and a candy bar in a plastic sack just thrown on the floor by the front door with no names. So that caused a fight between Shadow and Aaron because Shadow always wanted what Aaron had, later revealing himself to be that exact type of character too. Or Shadow grew up and said that Aaron was living in Shadow's shadow. Make that make sense. Until next time, thank you for listening.